A lion saves a lost baby in the savannah. What happens next stuns the whole world. The sun hung low over the African savannah, casting long shadows across the parched earth. The air was thick with heat, and the faint hum of distant wildlife blended with the rustling of dry grasses. A vast, untamed wilderness stretched endlessly, a place of beauty and danger in equal measure. In the heart of this wild kingdom, young Emma clung to her mother, Sarah, as they navigated the vast terrain in their safari jeep. Their trip was meant to be a peaceful adventure, a chance to see the iconic animals of Africa in their natural habitat. But as they journeyed deeper into the savannah, something felt off, as though the land itself was holding its breath. "Mom, look, a lion!" Emma gasped, pointing to a pride of majestic lions lounging lazily beneath a tree. The golden manes shimmered under the setting sun, their eyes flickering with ancient wisdom. "Stay quiet, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, her voice a mix of awe and caution. "Remember, we are visitors in their world." Emma nodded, her wide eyes never leaving the lioness's. But as Sarah's gaze shifted toward the horizon, a feeling of unease settled in her chest. A storm was coming, though the sky seemed deceptively clear. She couldn't shake the sense that something was about to happen, something neither she nor Emma could control. A sudden movement on the outskirts of the pride caught her attention, a small figure stumbling through the tall grasses. It was a baby, no older than a year, alone and lost in the vastness of the savannah. Sarah's heart raced. The baby was not from their group, and it was utterly helpless in this wild and unforgiving environment. "Stop the car," Sarah shouted to the driver, her voice cracking with fear. "We have to help it." But before she could act, the earth trembled with a growl, low, rumbling, and filled with menace. A lion, massive and regal, stepped forward from the pride, its amber eyes locking onto the baby. The other lions followed suit, their predatory instincts sharp, but the alpha lion raised its massive paw, signaling them to stay. It was as if the beast knew something Sarah did not. The jeep came to an abrupt halt, and for a moment, everything was still. Sarah and Emma watched in stunned silence as the baby cried out, its small voice echoing through the savannah. The lion, however, did not move, as though it was considering its next move carefully. It was an unlikely standoff. The ruler of the savannah, the feared lion, and a tiny, vulnerable human infant. Then, something unexpected happened. The lion moved forward, its graceful stride approaching the baby, not with the speed of a predator, but with the slow deliberation of something much more intelligent. The world seemed to hold its breath. As the lion approached the baby, a sense of disbelief settled over Sarah. What was it doing? The lion's golden eyes remained fixed on the infant, but there was no growl, no sharp claws unsheathing, just the rhythmic, powerful beat of the lion's heart as it took another step toward the child. Then, without warning, a distant roar shattered the silence. The air grew tense. The lion paused, its ears flicking toward the sound. It was a rival, another pride encroaching on its territory. The moment of hesitation passed, but in that heartbeat, the lion made its decision. The growl that had once promised death now signified something else entirely. The lion moved, swiftly, silently, and before Sarah could react, the baby was gently scooped up in the lion's mouth. Its teeth were sharp, but there was no harm, only the protection of a being much more powerful than any human could comprehend. Is it taking the baby?" Emma whispered, her small hand gripping Sarah's. Sarah didn't know how to answer. The lion's presence was both terrifying and majestic. And now it had a baby, her baby, wrapped in its care. For the next few moments, the world seemed to slow. The other lions, perhaps sensing their leader's unspoken command, stayed in place, watching with what appeared to be curiosity rather than aggression. It was as if they, too, were waiting to see what would unfold. Just as quickly as it had started, the lion turned and began walking deeper into the savannah, the baby still gently held in its jaws. It moved with a sense of purpose, the pride following closely behind, and then, in a blink of an eye, they vanished into the horizon, leaving Sarah and Emma alone in the vast, quiet wilderness. "Should we follow?" Emma asked, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "I don't know if we should, sweetie," Sarah replied, her heart racing. "But we can't just leave the baby out there. We have to know what happens next." With the storm now rolling in, they made a decision to follow the lion from a safe distance, not daring to get too close but driven by a deep, inexplicable pull. As they moved further into the wilderness, the air grew thick with the scent of rain, and distant thunder rumbled ominously. Time seemed to stretch as they chased after the trail left by the lion, wondering what would happen to the baby in the jaws of the savannah's mightiest predator. The world around them grew darker as the storm clouds gathered overhead, and the distant roar of the approaching rival lions became more insistent. Sarah's instincts screamed at her to turn back, but the pull to protect the lost baby was stronger. They had to see this through. The lion, meanwhile, continued its steady pace, its massive form cutting through the tall grasses with a grace that belied its size. The baby, cradled in the lion's mouth, seemed untouched, as if the lion's power had somehow shielded it from harm. It wasn't a predator's grip. It was the grip of a protector, a guardian. Finally, they reached a secluded part of the savannah, where the lion stopped. The storm had arrived in full force now, rain slashing against the earth in sheets. The lion placed the baby gently onto the ground beneath a wide tree, its long, golden mane wet with the downpour. But the moment of peace was short-lived. The rival pride was closing in, and the air buzzed with tension. The lion let out a deep, resonant growl, and for a moment the world seemed to still. Then the unexpected happened. The lion, instead of retreating, turned toward the rival pride. It stood tall, its massive chest heaving with each breath, its eyes burning with defiance. The other lions hesitated. They had no idea what to make of this strange scenario, an alpha lion protecting a baby instead of hunting it. As the rival pride made its move, the lion charged forward. The storm howled, lightning crackling through the sky as the lion engaged in a battle that would echo across the savannah. And in the midst of it all, Sarah and Emma could only watch, their hearts in their throats. The battle between the two prides was fierce and raw. The rival lions lunged with savage grace, their teeth bared, claws outstretched. But the protector lion stood firm. Every strike it made a warning to the challengers. Its muscles rippled with power, but there was an underlying tenderness in its movements, its eyes never straying from the helpless baby it had rescued. In the distance, Sarah and Emma watched helplessly. The storm now raged with full fury, the wind tearing through the savannah, the heavens opening up in a deluge. Every strike, every roar seemed to carry the weight of the entire world. The savannah was alive with the primal rhythm of nature, the fierce battle between survival and protection. And yet, through it all, the baby remained untouched, cradled in the protective presence of the lion. There were moments of near catastrophe, twisted, near-fatal confrontations between the lion and its rival, moments when it seemed like the world itself would swallow them whole. But time and time again, the lion managed to shield the child, using its powerful body as a barrier against harm. Sarah felt her heart breaking as she realized that, in this battle, the lion had become the savior of something far more vulnerable than itself. The storm raged on, but the battle between the two prides reached its boiling point. Just when it seemed that the lion would be overwhelmed, the unimaginable happened, a distant roar, loud enough to shake the ground beneath their feet. It was a call for help. Sarah turned to Emma in confusion, but before she could say anything, the ground trembled beneath them. From the shadows emerged a second, even larger lion, this one an elder, covered in scars, with a wisdom that seemed to emanate from its every movement. The elder lion approached the battlefield with an air of authority, its presence enough to make the rival pride hesitate. With a final, powerful roar, The elder lion stepped forward, joining the protector in its defense of the baby. The rival pride, now clearly outmatched, began to retreat, their aggressive stance faltering in the face of such a united front. The battle was over. The rival pride had retreated into the vastness of the savannah, and peace settled once again over the land. The protector lion, its body battered but unbroken, turned its gaze toward Sarah and Emma. It approached them, slowly, cautiously, as if unsure of what they would do next. But the bond between the lion and the baby was undeniable. The lion gently nudged the child toward Sarah, who, in disbelief, picked up the baby, its small form warm against her chest. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The lion simply looked at her, its amber eyes filled with understanding. No words were needed. The lion had protected the innocent, and in doing so, it had shown the world the power of compassion and loyalty. As the storm finally began to subside, a single beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the savannah. The lion, its task complete, turned and walked back into the wilderness, leaving behind a legacy of courage, protection, and the bond between all living creatures. And as Sarah and Emma walked back toward the jeep, they knew that the world had just witnessed something extraordinary, something that would forever change their understanding of the world and the deep, unspoken connections between humans and animals. In a world that often seems divided, it is the unexpected acts of kindness and protection that remind us of the true power of love and loyalty. Sometimes it is not our differences that define us, but our shared capacity for compassion.